Good day, poker peeps. This is Sky with Smart Poker Study, coming at you with 11 tips for more online poker profits. To help you take notes, go to smartpokerstudy.com/pod488. Tip number 1, bet when they check and show weakness. Now, this is a great way to steal the pot, especially when they check instead of a normal bet that they would make. Let's see this in action. Under the gun open raises to 3 big blinds. He's a tight aggressive player, as we can see by the smart HUD, an 18/9 player, folded to steals 100% of the time, folded to c-bets 100% as well. It is only 1 out of 1, but he's looking like a tight aggressive player. It's folded to us. We call with king-queen suited on the button, and the blinds fold. Now we have position on the flop, and it comes ace, 10, deuce, giving our king-queen a gut shot. He checks to us. Interesting, this is a spot where a tight aggressive player, if he had an ace, would most of the time bet to try to get value out of us. So his check is a great sign of weakness, and we pounce on it by bluffing. It helps that we have a gut shot and a couple of big cards on this ace 10 deuce board, so that just in case he calls, the turn could come something that helps us. But the most important thing is he checked in a spot where he would normally bet for value. So we make that simple half pot bet and take it down. Tip number 2, value or bluff check raise the bet when you checkers. Now, this flips the script on number 1 that we just covered. It's a way to fight back against those who bet when you check and show weakness. What you can do is just check to induce their bet, then you raise either for value or to bluff them off their hand. Let's see this in action. So the cutoff, another tight aggressive player, open raises to 3 big blinds. We're the only caller in the big blind with ace of hearts, 2 of hearts. The flop comes queen of hearts, 4 of hearts, 3 of diamonds, giving our ace deuce of hearts. We have a gut shot plus a nut flush draw. We check, and then the tight aggressive player c-bets just about 1/3 pot. Does this smell like weakness? Absolutely. So we check raise bluff him 3 times his bet, and boom, take it down. Now that was a bluff check raise. Let's see this in action with a value check raise. The cutoff player, Fishy player 31/0, makes his first open raise to 3 big blinds out of 13 hands played so far. We are in the small blind with pocket jacks, and instead of 3 betting, we just call to see the flop against this fish who's probably going to play his hand kind of face up. The big blind ends up folding. Flop comes down ace, jack, 6, giving us middle set. We pray to God that he has an ace, so we plan a check raise. We check, he bets full pot. Yep, look at that, full pot. He's playing his hand face up. I can almost guarantee he has an ace. So we've got to get value while the getting's good. We min check raise right here to get some value out of him and to build the pot right for the future turn and the river. He ends up calling. The turn comes a blank 8 of diamonds. Doesn't scare us in any way. It makes the board ace, jack, 6, 8. We still have a lovely set of jacks. So what we do, we decide to come out firing. We make a big bet because we believe a fish like this cannot fold an ace. He shoves, we snap call, boom, we take it down the 5 on the river, and he held ace, king. Yeah, he played it pretty face up, and we got maximum value with our set. Now this next part is critical. When you value check raise, you must be able to name weaker hands that can give you value. Also, when you are bluff check raising, you have to name strong hands that can find a fold. He didn't have an ace, so he could have folded in that prior king-queen hand on the ace-10 board. He could have folded any 10, any underpair, anything not connected, anything weaker at all that just didn't have an ace that didn't want to value bet. Now, in order to build the ability to name a lot of hands in their range, you must build your hand reading skills. And the best way to do this is with my online poker hand reading workbook. Go to smartpokerstudy.com/hand reading workbook to pick it up. Now for tip number 3, do not value check raise versus fishy calling stations. These players do not bluff. So when you check, they're going to check back and they're going to be happy to see the next street for free. If you want value, you have to bet to get them to call. So let's see this in action. We open in the small blind with ace-10 offsuit, and a fishy big blind player calls. The flop comes down ace-king 5 rainbow, so we hit top pair with our ace-10. We check in hopes that he bluffs, but he's a 43/0 fish. Your check allows him to check behind and see a free turn card to complete any kind of draw he might have, or even improve a weak pair of like 5-3 offsuit he might have called with. He just now turned a 3 to give him 2 pair to come ahead of your ace-10. So here is the key idea with this one. Do not let fish see free cards when you hold a value hand. Get value while the getting's good and bet on the flop to charge them for any weak hands they want to continue with. And that bet on the flop builds the pot for a bigger turn and a bigger river and eventually a big showdown. Tip number 4, donk bet big when out of position and you hit a monster hand. I recently learned this from Alex Fitzgerald. Think about how you feel when players donk into you after calling your pre-flop raise. It annoys you, right? Well, let's use this against them when we flop monsters from out of position. So here's the plan. We flop a massive hand. We annoy them with a big donk bet. They make an angry raise or maybe an angry call, and then we crush them through the rest of the hand. Let's see this in action. A big stack player opens to 3 big blinds on the button, and we are the only caller in the big blind with ace of diamonds, 6 of diamonds. The flop comes ace, 6, deuce, giving us 2 pair, but there are 2 clubs on the board. But we decide, because we flop so big, we decide to donk bet 4.5 into the 6.5 big blind pot. He just calls, and the turn comes a blank 9 of hearts, making the board ace, 6, deuce, 9 with a couple of clubs still. We have our 2-pair hand with ace 6, so we fire 18 big blinds into 15.5, trying to really up the annoyance factor by overbetting for value here, and he calls. The river comes a non-club 10 of hearts, making that final board ace, 6, deuce, 9, 10, with a busted flush draw. We want value here with our 2-pair hand, so we only bet 20 into the 51.5 big blind pot. He folds. But here's the thing, through the magic of Ignition Poker, with whole cards exposed 24 hours later, we get to see that he actually had the king deuce of clubs. So we flopped the flush draw plus a pair. We bet and we got maximum value out of this player that just could not fold. Such a potentially lovely draw. And I really like how we donk bet that flop, so we didn't allow him to just check behind to potentially see a free deuce on the turn or even a club to beat us. Tip number 5. Get value while the getting's good. So when you flop a strong hand, it is your job to get as much value as possible. I'm sure you target the fish like I do because you know that their mistakes slide those chips into your stack. So help them give you their chips by betting or raising for value when you hold a great hand ahead of their calling range. Do not slow play your best hands. Now, sometimes they're going to fold versus your value bets, but don't let this get you down and never frown when you take it down. Tip number 6 is to learn from your missed value hands to steal more pots. So maybe you missed out on some value. You just 3-bet your pocket aces and they all folded. Drat! You flopped a set of 10s, you c-bet from out of position, and they all folded. Double drat! What's a guy got to do to get some value? Well, here's the thing. I want you to spend a week analyzing these missed value hands. Create a tag in Poker Tracker 4 and just call it missed value. And then tag every hand where they fold versus your value bet. Review these hands in your database and analyze them to answer the question, why did they fold? Now, maybe they were simply at the bottom of their range and there's nothing you can do about that. But maybe you value bet too big. So could they have called a half pot or 1/3 pot bet instead of folding to your 2/3 pot bet? Maybe the board is so scary and they realize that you would only bet with that super strong hand. Now that you've answered the question of why they folded, use the answer as a way to steal more pots with plays that scream value. Let's see this in action. So we're reviewing this hand after the fact. Our opponent folded versus our value bet. Now if we look here, we get a limper from under the gun, a few folds. We are in the big blind with ace of diamonds, queen of diamonds. We're a tight player, right? 14-14 player. So we ISO raise from the big blind versus this limper. We make it 4 big blinds. The limper called, and we flop 2 over cards plus a flush draw on the jack deuce 3 board. We c-bet, and then they make a min raise, but we have so much equity with our flush draw, backdoor straight, 2 over cards. We're kind of, interested in continuing. We do not want to fold just yet. So we end up calling their min raise. Now that turn comes down a lovely queen of clubs, giving us top pair, top kicker. We still have our flush draw. with that board being Jack, Deuce, 3, Queen, and we have Ace, Queen of Diamonds. So because he just raised on that prior street, we think he likes his hand, so we decide to check in order to check raise. He makes it 40% pot, and then we come over the top 3x. We make it 30 big blinds over his 10 big blind barrel, and he folds. Drat. But we got to ask ourselves, why did they fold? Maybe because a tight player, remember we're 14-14 from out of position, we bet and then called on the flop, and now we check raise the turn? That signifies a huge value hand. So maybe next time we should use this kind of opportunity to bluff check raise the turn with anything weaker. We can use the idea of this hand to exploit them in the future and steal more pots. Tip number 7 is to fight with equity. There's one thing all of those prior hand examples had in common. It's that we fought with a hand that held equity in the pot. Now, it might have been a made hand or a good drawing hand equity. But in every instance, we had more than just betting as a way to win the pot. If you think back to those prior hands, we had flush draws, we had gut shots, we had top pairs, we had sets, we had 2 pairs, we had pair plus draw kind of stuff. So if you have little to no equity in the hand, either because you don't connect with the board or because your opponent's range is so far ahead of you, it's okay to just exit the hand. Fighting for pots with little equity often leads to spewing chips at your opponents. So speaking of spewing chips, tip number 8, let the lags spew into you. Ultra-aggressive players, they love to spew chips at you. They understand that aggression wins in poker, and they hope that betting street after street, it's going to get you to fold. But they often don't notice the signs that you won't fold. So you exploit these lag players by just calling them down when you have a solid top pair hand. Now I know, it can be scary, especially when their bets grow each street, but you are exploiting their spewy tendencies, so just strap in for the ride. So let's see this in action. This 58-38 lag player opens to 3.6 big blinds in the small blind. You just call with your king jack off in the big blind. The flop comes down, king 10-6 rainbow. You flop a lovely top pair hand versus that ultra aggressive maniac here. So on that flop, he c-bets half pot, and you just call with your top pair hand. You're stringing him along. Another 6 hits the turn, making the board 10-6, king 6, and you've got that king jack for 2 pair kings and 6s. Now he barrels 2/3 pot, and you just call. The river comes another 6, making that final board 10-6, king 6-6, giving you a pretty good full house. But now that lag player bets full pot. He's increased his bet size street by street, half, 2/3, full pot on the river. So it is possible he has the 4th 6 for quad 6s or even pocket aces at this point, or maybe even pocket kings or 10s for a higher full house. So you decide to just call. He turns over 4-3 offsuit, a hand with almost zero equity from the start that he chose to triple barrel bluff with. Your call ends up winning you a lovely 92 big blind. And it's interesting to note that Villain ignored tip number 6 to fight with equity. His 4-3 offsuit on the king 10-6, he just had 2 undercards to the board and maybe a backdoor straight draw, but very, very little equity, especially from out of position fighting for this and losing almost 50 big blinds in the process. Tip number 9, take your hand off of your mouse for growing pots. A big blind saved is a big blind earned. So to avoid finger tilt and save yourself from those mistakes and losing big blinds, take your hand off the mouse to give yourself time to think through each situation. Now, these are the most common spots where finger tilt can happen. Being dealt a big pocket pair, hitting top pair on a wet board, the pot is growing and you're facing huge bets or raises, the turn or river is a scare card for you, or maybe you're angry and tilting and you want revenge on this opponent that you're up against right now. Tip number 10, play when you are capable of playing at your best. So as online players, poker's open 24/7 for us, but that does not mean that we should just play at any random time or in any random state of mind. Play when you know you can be in a game mindset. I'm a morning person, so I like playing in the morning because that's when my mind is firing. However, if you're a night owl and you're groggy in the morning, even after drinking coffee, don't play in the morning. Maybe devote some poker time to studying instead. This was just going to be a 10-tip list, but then I thought, let's give them one more to grow on. So here's your bonus tip number 11 to help you grow your poker profits. Replace calls with 3-bets. Now, there's a pattern that I found with myself and all of my students. It's that our 3-bet win rate is greater than our call 2-bet win rate. Let's take a look at my numbers for the year so far. 22,000 hands played this year. My 3-betting as a percentage is 6.3%. I've been calling this year so far 8.84. So I'm making more calls than I am 3-bets. But here's the thing. If we look at my 3-bet win rate, 3-betting positive 607 big blinds per 100 hands, which means on average I'm earning 6.07 big blinds every time I 3-bet. But what is my win rate when I'm calling those 2-bets? Well, shameful. Positive 12.5 big blinds per 100 hands. Each call makes me only 0.12 big blinds. So that begs the question, right? Why the heck am I calling more than I'm 3-betting? So this month's goal is to have my 3-bet percentage be greater than my call 2-bet percentage. And I'm working my way there, right? It's a slow process. But this might be a worthy goal for you to achieve or to strive for on your own. Now, I do have a YouTube video called Turn Preflop Calls into 3-bets that's going to teach you how to turn those calls into 3-bets, like I said, link in the description down below. Now, I'm not going to give you the full-on details of that video because it's an 18-minute video and I cover all of the tips. Instead, I'm going to give you the gist right now. You want to start by turning late position calls into 3-bets. You're targeting loose open raisers, so anybody who open raises greater than 20% in their position. You want to 3-bet more often for value, maybe with wider ranges like ace, queen, even ace, jack and above, and pocket nines. And 3-bet bluff more often with those suited aces, suited connectors, and even sneaky hands like king 7 suited and queen 9 suited. They never see those coming. And as always, it's time for you to take action. Why do we take action? Well, because action is the greatest teacher. Your first action, please like the video if you like the video, subscribe for more, and comment down below. Next, of course, you want to write all 11 tips on sticky notes, attach them to your monitor, and then focus on one at a time over the next 11 or more play sessions. Ingrain all 11 of these tips into your game so you can build your profits, build that bankroll, make more money, and enjoy poker a bit more as well. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.